Hi everybody. So today I thought I would do the trad witch tag. It's been around for over a year. I actually did this whole video once before on my other camera and something messed up with it, and so I put it away and didn't come back to it, but I feel like I really want to do it and answer these questions. Plus I think it's a great introduction to where I'm coming from and all that stuff. So it's just a fun thing to do. At least it started out as a fun thing to do and got wildly out of control, but we'll get there. Okay. I thought it would be well, I don't know why I thought, but it'd be like a quick little thing, and it's probably not going to be a quick little thing. So number one, the question is, what kind of craft do you practice? Folk magic, traditional witchcraft, Wicca, modern witchcraft, ceremonial magic, eclectic, occultism, etc. I guess eclectic occultism probably technically is what it is. I typically refer to it as just witchcraft. It does lean really folk magic and traditional witchcraft sometimes. I pull elements from ceremonial magic, like the Solomonic pentacles and different things like that from some of the grimoire traditions, but I don't use them necessarily in a ceremonial tradition. There's definitely parts of my craft that look really modern or new age, like working with ascended master spirits or angels or archangels or some of the metaphysics and stuff like that. So I don't really have an answer to that. I just call it witchcraft because I just feel like the world of magic is so big and there's so much information that is available to us to use at any point in time that trying to stay within one definition is really difficult for me. So I just say witchcraft. It's kind of my same philosophy on the idea of kitchen witch. Are you a kitchen witch or a green witch or whatever? You know, I see those as different witcheries, different aspects of magic that we can pull and use. Like sometimes I'm using herbs and plants and stuff and I'm doing green witchcraft, but then the next day I could be making something in the kitchen and I'm using kitchen witchcraft. So it's the same thing like that with what kind of craft do you practice? I practice witchcraft. And there's a lot of elements involved in that. So yes, to all of it, I guess. Yes. Number two, what paradigm, faith, or philosophy informs your craft? Like spirit model, animism, neoplatonism, psychological approach, energy model, or polytheism. Ultimately, I would say Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, and Hermeticism. That's kind of the same roundabout idea. Neoplatonic Hermeticism, but that doesn't mean that I don't do spirit work. It doesn't mean that I am not animistic, right? So I do feel like I'm very animistic with that. I do a lot of work with myself and with other clients that is psychologically based, like shadow work and stuff like that, that also combines things like soul retrieval and spirit work, even though we are working with elements of psychology. So I use the energy model and the spirit model. I will petition spirits, but sometimes I will use more of connecting with the divine mind idea for manifestation. I mean, it's kind of a combination of those if I were to really explain it. I work with a lot of different deities, spirits, angels, saints, that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily polytheistic because I do ultimately believe that everyone is one, which includes all of the deities and angels. You see what I mean? So I work with them like they're individual, like they're polytheistic, but I don't truly believe that they are individuated. But I also don't believe that I am individuated, right? I believe that I'm having an experience. It's an individual experience, but ultimately there is only one mind having all of these experiences. So that's the paradigm, faith, or philosophy. Again, it's a Hermetic philosophy. That's where I talk about Hermeticism. So yes, again, I guess all of it. I don't know. Number three, what culture or cultures is your practice rooted in? It's not really rooted in one practice, but I would say American folk magic with a really hermetic foundation, like I said. So in American folk magic, there's a lot of different stuff. I'm in Pennsylvania, and so I do work with a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch Brauchery and Hexerai and stuff like that magic, but also Appalachian magic, also hoodoo, also other forms of like British folk magic and German folk magic and stuff like that. In the crafting part of it, but that's not really a cultural, I guess. Again, American folk magic is, I guess, cultural, but also, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I do is really metaphysics, based in metaphysics and hermeticism. So I don't really know how to answer that either, but it gives me an opportunity to talk about it, I guess. So, okay, number 4. I don't know that I answered that altogether well, but that's the idea. It's basically American folk magic with newer spins into like elements of theosophy and spiritism, right? I don't think I talked about that very much, but spiritism and spiritualism are a big part of it because it's part of metaphysics and that hermeticism and all of that stuff. The thing is that any elements of the things from hermeticism and magic and alchemy, as we're talking about like the paradigm, which was number 2. I'm reading it, sorry. The paradigm that you're coming from, Hermeticism and Neoplatonism have become so enmeshed in all forms of magic, even in folk magic traditions, that it's difficult to separate the two. And if you go back into the actual alchemical and hermetic magical philosophies, they were talking about theurgy. They were talking about using magic, working with spirits and using magic as a way of elevating the spirit, right? Recombining back to the understanding of oneness, of divine mind, of your divine heritage, your divine identity. And that, if we were to put it in to modern terms like that, what we're talking about is ascension work. We're talking about the light body. We're talking about the Merkaba. We're talking about the fifth dimensional sort of perspective, or moving up, elevating up. Like, these are all things that are talked about in spiritualism and in spiritism that are folk magic practices. And that was the philosophy of alchemy. And they used rough things like stones and herbs to put that philosophy into practice while they were doing the internal work, the whole thing. Anyways, but the point was, right, to do the inner work in order to elevate the consciousness, the awareness, right? That's very connected to theosophy and modern, what you would consider to be, we're getting severe thunderstorm warnings. I'm so excited. It just popped up on my phone. Anyway, you would see that same kind of language in metaphysics today and in New Age stuff today, right? But in magical traditions, it's called theurgy, and you're working with deities to do it. Well, you're working, so it's all, to me, it's all very connected. It has the same point of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I wanted to get that out, but not get too boggled down into it. Okay, culture. Now, 5 is, oh no, I'm sorry, 4. How long have you been practicing and how did it all start? So I've been practicing since I was 13, which is about 25 years. I guess if you were to like name the point in time for witchcraft, was when I was 13, and I was going into a bookstore and I was kind of asking about it, but I didn't really know what I was asking about. And thankfully the girl that I was talking to was like, well, do you mean magic like magic tricks, or do you mean magic with a K? And took me over to the section where there was like magic, and Silva Ravenwolf was the first book that I got. It was either the Teen Witch book or the To Light a Sacred Flame book. I can't remember which one of those I got first, but I do remember her I do remember, like, you know, having these books and that being such a pivotal, like, thing. So it was Silver Raven Wolf, and I was 13, and that's how it all started, basically. Number 5, what books or resources have you first started with, and would you recommend them to others today? Again, like I said, it was Silver Raven Wolf's books, but also Raven Grimassi and Scott Cunningham were the books that I started with. Is basically Wicca, like most people, especially 90s. And I mean, I recommend these kinds of Scott Cunningham books, the Encyclopedia, Cunningham's Encyclopedia. He has ones for stones and kitchen magic too. That's an encyclopedia like that. And so the other ones, I mean, if somebody said, hey, would this be a good book? I probably would be like, well, yeah, I mean, read it and see what you like about it. But I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to say, oh, this is the book that you need, right? I think there are probably other ones. And I'm literally surrounded by heaps of books right now because, like I said, it got wildly out of control, which I think is the next. Oh, no. Number 6 says, how has your practice or paradigm changed over the years, if at all? It always changes. Not necessarily the paradigm, although it did change from when I was little because I was still figuring things out and didn't really understand the philosophies underneath all of that stuff. So from 13 till now, it's been 25 years and a lot has changed in that time frame. So yes, but also a lot of my practice evolves even now. So, you know, I do have consistent things that I do, but there's also stuff I add or take out. I'm doing stuff consistently. What that stuff is sometimes changes, I guess you could say. Number 7, what does your daily or regular practice look like? What do you do on a regular basis? So speaking of that stuff, I've been doing a lot of ancestor work recently. I'm going to talk about the stuff that I do recently. There's, like I said, we got thunderstorms, so all of a sudden it's getting darker, and I might pop the light on if it gets too dark, but sorry about the lighting. So recently I've been doing ancestor work and deity work, which is just daily leaving the offerings out. So like coffee for the ancestors. I've been burning ancestor money and leaving incense and things like that. And with some of my primary deities like Hecate, I'll do leave offerings, which is just usually incense and a candle. But my daily work changes depending on what I'm doing. So like currently right now, from the 26th of July, I have a crystal grid set up for the Lionsgate Sirius energy coming in that I do work with daily for this particular time period, till August 12th, I believe it is. I usually pull cards and have like a tarot, not necessarily every day, but consistently pulling cards and doing that kind of work. It just depends on what I'm doing, right? So like I said, I have the crystal grid going right now. So interspersed, I have stuff going on, whether it's celebrating a feast day or doing spell work and magical work or whatever. I'm not super consistent with almost anything. I'll do stuff, but what that stuff is changes, like I said. Okay, number 8, are there aspects of your craft that you need to keep secret? In your opinion, is secrecy important in witchcraft? I generally keep all of the active workings that I'm doing secret while they're secret, things I'm working on manifesting. I'm going to see how the light works. So, yeah, son. Are there aspects of your craft you need to keep secret? Yes, I keep secret anything that I'm working on manifesting, active spell work that I'm doing, anything like that. I keep secret. I don't tell anybody what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do or anything like that. Once things have come to pass, then I'll talk about it, use it as an example, of teaching example or whatever, whether that was a positive, like whether it turned out or didn't turn out. I'll use it as an example of talking about stuff. I do think that secrecy is important, but not like in a gatekeepy way that's like, oh, you can't know this because whatever. It's more like just in a magical way, in a manifesting way. I do think it's important because to eliminate the influence of other people's energies and opinions and awareness on something, you want to keep it secret and hidden away, which is oftentimes the opposite of what we do. When we have something that we're excited about, we want to share it with a lot of people. And when we have something we're afraid that will manifest, that we're scared of, we tend to like be quiet and keep it secret and whatever. And it's kind of the opposite of what you need to do. I have found in my own experience, which could be right or wrong, that when I'm fearful about something, if I vent it, not to a bunch of people, but just some of my closest, like my husband or something, and I vent it, especially if I say I'm doing this to discharge energy, like if I have an intent behind it, I'm doing this so that it will not manifest, and I say this is what I'm scared of, and I verbalize it, that it does disperse a lot of that energy, and the quieter I keep something that I'm working on, the more effective it is. So because of trial and error, I do that. You do what you want, but that's what I do when it comes to secrecy. Other than that, as far as active altars go, depends on what the altar is. I wouldn't mind sharing like the crystal grid, but just depends on what the active altar is. Like I would share my ancestor altar. I don't really have a big deal about that. I thought something was moving right here, but you can see the reflection of the trees through the window. Anyway, blah, blah. Shining. So I don't have any issues about that. Like I share my book and I don't have any problem sharing any part of my craft. I only don't share stuff that I'm actively like working on. So that, I think I've rambled enough about that. What are some of your favorite tools that you use regularly? Because I brought out all of these books that spiraled out of control, I only brought out a couple of tools that I use regularly. Some of it I'll show here. The book, I use this all the time. I actively work in it, add to it, and work from it. These are all herbs and oils up here that I use. This, like, really, there's like candles and all kinds of stuff in there, but so that kind of stuff I use all the time. I did bring over my cauldron because I got it at a thrift store, not a thrift store, antique store. And it's a cast iron cauldron. And there's even stuff in it because it hasn't been, I just used it to make an herbal thing. So I thought I would show you. I use that a lot making washes for like windows and floors or bath washes, things like that. I use that a lot for that. Just stuff that's interesting. I use beads quite a bit. So these are based off of the Druids' shining ones, right? Higher elevated earth spirits is the red and ancestors as the black. And that is absolutely my favorite. I made this. This one's an oak leaf. And then the separating beads are, I don't know if you'll be able to see it here, but it's a tree of life beads. Anyway, that form of prayer bead work or rosary work of the Druids is my favorite work to do that way. As far as beads go, I do have regular rosaries that I have used, and there's a book on it over here. And then this one is a 9-strand. I use this a lot with my violet flame work. But really anything that I'm wanting to repeat but not have a set thing like a rosary or the Druid beads, I use this quite a bit, and it's just an amethyst 9-string bead. I use that quite a bit. In fact, it's usually in my spell kit, like take and go box. Okay, the tarot cards I use on a regular basis. These are the tattoo tarot cards. Oracle cards I use on a regular basis, right? I have quite a bit of oracle cards. Is that all I brought? I think that's all I brought. I have Florida water. Anyways, yeah, so that kind of stuff, it's like either I show you everything or I kind of show you only enough. So I chose everything with the books, but anyway, okay. And then number 10 was, what books or resources would you recommend to a newbie interested in your kind of craft? Okay, so I'm going to start with something super basic, which is like philosophy foundation stuff. From this stuff, you can go in any direction you want, and I have a lot of those directions here. So the first thing that I'm going to show is this guy, which is the 3 Books of Occult Philosophy by Agrippa. Justin Sledge on Esoterica, most of you have watched this, probably already know, has a course out about this right now, free on his website or on his YouTube. I've been watching it and really enjoying it, and but this set of books and philosophy is the underlying absolute foundation of Western magic, and any of the books that you pick up are going to have been influenced in their thought process from modern Wicca to traditional witchcraft. Like everything is going to have been influenced from this philosophy. So it's important to know, and I see this a lot when people ask, well, why is that herb mean that thing? Right? Like, why does that mean, what could I use? What could I substitute? What could I do? Right? The why questions and what to use and everything is all this is the philosophy that it came from. And other things came out of this philosophy, like herbal astrology, right? Is very tied into that, which is a Hermetic philosophy. So this book, Neoplatonic Hermetic, right? And so speaking of Hermetic, the Corpus Hermeticum, and also I would add the Kybalion in there, but I couldn't find my copy to bring it. So I knew I would just say it while I said this, the Hermetic, Corpus Hermeticum and the Kybalion. Corpus Hermeticum sounds very Christian, and I have other books in here, but if you know anything about metaphysics, metaphysical Christianity, folk magic, ceremonial magic, all of it has Christian elements in it. Or sounds can possibly have very Christian elements in it, or at least Judeo-Christian elements in it, right? There's a foundation of that within Western occultism, and I find it helpful to have a philosophy that utilizes kind of the same language as far as deities, but has a different philosophy, that it's all connected, this is why the Kybalion, the all is mind, right? And then from that, we separate out, and then deities and angels and saints, and everybody's there. And it's not just fundamental Christianity, which can be kind of hard to get through as an American. We really are pushed up against Protestantism a lot, and most witches or magical practitioners have dealt with the history of having coming out of fundamental Christianity. And so the word, so much of this stuff has Christian elements in it, or uses the Psalms or whatever, that it can be kind of triggering. But if you can rework the philosophy in your mind and understand it from a Hermetic Christian, right? It's not really, but Hermetic, Neoplatonic standpoint. And even Hellenic faith, HellenicFaith.com talks about how the Hellenic faith was influenced and like at the same time of Neoplatonic philosophy, which is Hermetic philosophy, and so it all works together there, even without the idea of any of the Christian elements. So anyways, Hermetic philosophy. If you're talking about my stuff, Hermetic philosophy. Which then this one came out was the Chicken Kabbalah. So if you're looking to get more into Kabbalah stuff, which goes very well into this stuff, but you want the philosophy of it, this one's really good by Lon Milo Duquette, because he's speaking our language so we can understand it. Not literal language, but I mean like modern language, and breaking it down in a way that is understandable instead of really philosophical. So I'm trying to get through it pretty fast. Okay. So those ones. And then this one here, the Secret Teachings of All Ages, has a lot to do with explaining Hermeticism. It was done after, obviously, the 3 books of occult philosophy, Manly P. Hall. But again, like turn of the century type stuff, I think, or I don't remember exactly when this came out. Well, 1901 to 1990. It was his life. He lived. He was born in 1901, so 1920s or so probably that he wrote this. Anyways, Secret Teachings of All Ages really helps to make a syncretized, because Hermeticism is syncretized. It's all of the philosophies of Prisca Theologia, is that every religion, spiritual philosophy has truth in it, right? It's all telling, not necessarily literally each the truth, but all of it has an underlying thread that connects it all together, that is one, that is a philosophy. Blah, blah, blah. And this, it does a really good job of doing that. Now, and then if you, so those are all philosophy stuff. And then if you're going to start with a book, or books on, like I just need to gather information, any of these encyclopedia ones by Cunningham are really good, because they do show like what the herb, most people know this, but like the herbs, my camera's really bad for this, but anyways, right here it says the gender, the planet that rules the herb, the element that rules the herb, the magical uses, folk names, and the gender that rules it. That's all Kybalion. That all comes from 3 books of occult philosophy. It all comes from Hermeticism. So that's why. Okay, so that's that. That's all philosophy, foundational, really basic stuff. And then this all started this way because there's not a whole lot of stuff out there about Pennsylvania folk magic specifically. And when I say Pennsylvania folk magic, I mean the Brauchrei tradition, which is the healing tradition, the Hexerei tradition, which they normally call the magical tradition or the witchcraft tradition part of it. And then powwow they use as generic for any of that stuff, but also has a lot of Appalachian influence and different things like that. So I have a lot of books that I personally have on that tradition. So I'm going to go through them really fast. Hex and Spell Work by Carl Herr. H-E-R-R, Carl Herr. Hex and Spell Work. This one has a lot to do with, magical practices in general of the Pennsylvania Dutch. But of all of the books, this one talks the most about, hex signs. Anyway, I'm going to go through them fast because I might do a more in-depth one later. The Red Church by C.R. Bilardi, B-I-L-A-R-D-I. The Red Church. This one gives you see how thick it is. It's a really good overview of Pennsylvania Brauchrei. The actual healing tradition, like step by step, talks about the outline of how you would go through doing a healing process. There's a lot more information in it, but I'm giving the highlights of like what's different between them, right? And that's the one here. So if you're looking to like a how-to on how to perform a Brauchrei treatment on somebody, if you're going to call it that, this is the traditional book that you would do that. There's other information in it also as well. Erglava is not really part of Pennsylvania Dutch traditionally, but it's the pagan version of it, and so he took, there's another book in here, but I don't know if I have it that's from this particular author. I mean, I have it, I don't know if I have it right here. I don't think so. But this one is the Erglava tradition, which is tracing the Pennsylvania Dutch, pulling out Nordic, Germanic elements, more Germanic than Nordic, but elements, folk magic elements that were kept, right, underneath the Christian stuff as it moved across. So in here, if you're wanting to go back to more of the Germanic deities, some of the Germanic practices, folk magic, that kind of stuff, this one, first book of Erglava Myths by Robert S. Schreiber. I can't pronounce his name, sorry. It's very small. There's a couple of them that he has about that. It's his own particular tradition because he's the one that put all of that stuff together. And then is the non-Christian stuff, right? Like it's trying to build a practice around Pennsylvania Dutch, Pennsylvania folk magic that isn't Christian. That book starts it. Okay. The Powwow Grimoire by Robert Phoenix. Now this one is the grimoire, has more magic in it. healing arts, protection charms, hexery and the practice of witchcraft, herbal remedies, hex signs, and Himmel's briefs, divination, other side of powwow, ceremonial magic. So this one has more of the magical part of it, kind of, than the other ones. Oh, here's the Erglava. Here's the other Erglava one. It's a dictionary of Erglava terminology, but there's a lot of teaching in the dictionary part of it. So here's the two of those that I have. And then powwow and traditional folk and grimoire magic. This one was a talk, I think, or like a seminar type of thing that was given and then put into book format. So it's a little awkward to read, but it has a lot of good information on here. Traditional folk and grimoire magic. It's pretty similar-ish to the powwow grimoire as far as doing folk magic and magical stuff. This one is a little bit more modern American folk magic. This is also under another name because it's by Silver Ravenwolf. I can't remember, Hexcraft, I think. This is the book that I started with. And she has, it's a little bit more of a Wiccan approach to it, but she does have a lot of the chants and charms. You know which one I don't have? I mean, I have it, but I don't have it here, is the original, I'm even blanking on the name. Long Lost Friend. Long Lost Friend is the grimoire of Pennsylvania folk magic. But if you don't have it, I wouldn't go out of my way of getting it because a lot of the stuff in it is not super applicable to today's day and age. But it's always nice to have. Any of these books are going to cover what's in the Long Lost Friend, like the spells and stuff, and then she's reworked a lot of them for more modern needs, if I were to say that. Okay, now, additional little things that aren't talking specifically about Pennsylvania folk magic or Brauchei tradition. The supernatural lore from Pennsylvania is really helpful, and they do have, which I don't have the hard copy of, Witches of Pennsylvania, lore book, which goes through more of the historical witches and stuff that was here, because Pennsylvania folk magic has a lot of traditional folk saints. Well, I don't know about a lot, but has traditional folk saints like Mountain Mary and stuff like that. And so this has different areas, especially if you're in the Pennsylvania area, supernatural lore of Pennsylvania with ghosts, monsters, miracles, that kind of stuff. So you get to know sort of the landscape and what kind of supernatural activity is around there. And last but not least, my absolute favorite of the entire thing, even though I had all of this stuff first, which helps with this one, because this is more like a Grimm's fairy tales. This is like fairy tales of Pennsylvania Dutch, stories of witchcraft, magic, and the supernatural, fairy tale characters, spirits, land spirits, of specifically Pennsylvania area, landscape, stuff like that. If you're in the Pennsylvania area or you're looking to connect to some Pennsylvania Dutch German stuff, this book's the one. I'm trying to remember that I'm not supposed to be going super deep into all of this stuff and yakking on forever. Okay. This is a folk magic book of more Hellenic, I would say. If you're going through that, you're into Greek magical papyri, but you want sort of a folk magic book on it, right? So in here, preparations of securing a space, protective magic, amorous magic, wealth and prosperity, curses, transcendent. Again, with transcendent, they're talking about theurgy, they're talking about ascension, they're talking about that kind of stuff, but in Greek, Hellenic, really, comes mostly out of Greek magical papyri. Okay, so in the, I don't know which one to go to next, in the folk magic kind of thing, I'm going to run through really quickly. Any of these books at any point in time are really great if you don't care about having a philosophy in the book as far as explaining stuff to you. You just want the information. These little books, there's a ton of them. They're maybe $12, $9 each from Lucky Mojo, are really great. Spell bottles, right? Hoodoo dolls and effigies. deck of spells. This also includes tarot, but playing cards and tarot, spell work, food, hoodoo food, kitchen witchery, astrology and root workers, working folk magic with astrology, deliverance. I have a couple other ones that I couldn't find. I just grabbed what I could find. And I'm always collecting more of them because they're really good information. So if that's what you're going with. Okay, off of the folk magic spin on these things, we're going to go into these really quickly because most people know about these. I'm missing one of them, but Folk Witchcraft by Roger J. Horn, all of his books, which are the ones that I have here. To Ride a Broom at Midnight, Cartomancy. These are folk magic, right? So they're just putting together folk magic stuff. This one's very similar to the little book, the little Cartomancy. Where was it? This one. Not super similar, but the idea is similar, right? These ones for Cartomancy type stuff, because this one also has spells in it. So that's those. Folk magic. Start with folk witchcraft. If you're really into folk magic, that's where you would go. Also, cunning words. This is a really modern storytelling, but grimoire, awesome. Love it. And psychic witch. I have one in the wrong section. Psychic witch. Really good, developing more of your psychic abilities, really well written. Highly recommend that one. And The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. This one dealing with a lot of spirit work, paranormal investigations, but from a more spiritual witchcraft standpoint, especially folk magic witchcraft standpoint. Really like this book. Okay, boom, boom, boom. All right, I don't know where to put this one, but if you're into alchemy, this one's really great. It's the alchemical philosophy and spiritual alchemy combined. Teaches you how to make the actual alchemy substances, like walks you through the process of making alchemical substances, which gives you the philosophy and tells you why it's important to do the spiritual alchemy at the same time. Mark Stavish, The Path of Alchemy, highly recommend. Okay, Catholic, Christian, magic. If you're really into Catholic and Christian stuff, but you're having a hard time developing a philosophy that allows that because of maybe family or tradition influence, the magic of Catholicism, real magic for devout Catholics, ritual magic for conservative Christians. These are both by the same author, Brother Ada. He has another name, and I never remember. Augustino, I want to say. And then How to Pray the Rosary and Get Results. So it's not just rote prayer, but if you're into the Catholic side of stuff, but you're looking for the philosophy that underlies it and the practice of good. Okay, now moving over here to the last sort of little part that I want to get to that's more in metaphysics. So metaphysical Christianity, using these, transforming the mindset of, like if you're using psalm spells and things like that, from more of a metaphysical standpoint instead of a fundamental Christian standpoint, these are really great. So this is the 12 Powers, Charles Fillmore. This is all unity stuff, metaphysical Christianity. To Keep a True Lent, right? So if you're looking into some of the Christian traditions, like Lent, right? This could be even for Advent once you read it, that isn't just, I'm going to give up something, right? Like going deeper with that stuff and a more metaphysical stuff. And Kingdom Come, this is the book of Revelation, from a metaphysical Christian standpoint, from Ed Townley. They're all from unity stuff. Anything Rudolf Steiner is a really good information. I don't know what to say. This is Outline of Occult Science, Christianity as Mystical Fact, The Way of Initiation and its Results, esoteric collection. It's esoteric, occult, metaphysical Christianity. So I don't really know how to explain Steiner, but so this, going off of the Hermetica that I started with, the quantum Hermetica, if you want a really very scientific basis of Hermetic philosophy in the Kabbalion specifically, it goes through each of the 7 principles of the Kabbalion and explains the science and quantum whatever behind it, quantum science behind it. That one. The raw material. This is channeled material. Anything by Dolores Cannon, Raw, Edgar Casey. They're channeled materials that I find meet up with this kind of philosophy and modern theurgy, if I were going to put it that way. Under that same thing, A Course in Miracles, I had really profound experiences with A Course in Miracles after nothing for a long, long time and read through the whole thing, not understanding anything. But A Course in Miracles is a very Gnostic Christian. It's not very Christian, but Christian in its wordage, right? It's talking about the Holy Spirit, talks about God, talks about Jesus, but not in a fundamental Christian way, not in even a biblical way necessarily. So Course in Miracles, if that's something you're interested in, which goes along with the raw material, like this is the worldview foundation of that stuff, matches with Gnosticism and Hermeticism, the raw material. Okay, I think I got through all of that stuff. But anyways, yes, that's... Did I? I'm just looking around. Okay. That's it. So before this video is too super long, that is all. I will leave the questions down below. My phone went blank, so I'm making sure that's all of it. Okay. Polish Folk Witch was the one who started this. I'll leave the questions below. And anyways, if you're interested, like and subscribe. I usually leave all of my social medias down below. And if you're interested in a reading, I do soul discovery coaching, reading, astrology, work, right? Like energy work. That information will all be below too. Thanks. Bye.